The top story this evening, a Boeing 787 Dreamliner plane with 242 people on board crashed near Ahmedabad. The flight was en route to London and had 2 pilots and 10 cabin crew on board. The aircraft departed at 1:39 p.m. Indian Standard Time and crashed into the hostel of a medical college just minutes later. 169 Indian nationals, 53 British nationals, 1 Canadian national, 7 Portuguese nationals were on board. India's aviation regulator DGCA said the pilot gave a Mayday call, but there was no response by the aircraft thereafter to the calls made by the ATC. A Mayday call is a distress call used to signal a life-threatening emergency. It may be used in the case of engine failures, severe weather encounters, structural malfunctions and medical emergencies. Indian Prime Minister Modi called the incident heartbreaking and beyond words, while the UK Prime Minister Keir Starmer called the mishap devastating. In a statement, Boeing said that it is in contact with Air India and is ready to support the airline. GE Airspace, a major supplier of engines for Boeing, said it has activated an emergency response team and is prepared to support the investigation. CNBC's Phil Lebeau joins us now from France, which is set to see the International Paris Air Show from the 16th of June. Phil, tell us what the Air India plane crash means for Boeing's 787 Dreamliner.
And there are more questions than answers. The weather was clear by all indications based on the video that we've seen, so it really does come down to a couple of things. Was it a mechanical issue with the plane? Was it a mechanical or software issue with the plane and or the engines? Was it pilot error? Those are all things that investigators will be focused on. The Dreamliner, as well as the engines that powered this aircraft, they both have stellar track records. Yes, there were problems with the Dreamliner early on when it was first being developed and it was first entering into service. After that, it's had a very good track record. There have been occasional incidents where people have seen problems when it's lost altitude, and it has brought questions up about the reliability of the manufacturing. But none of that has ever been borne out with proof that there's a problem with the Dreamliner. As for the engines, which are made by GE Aerospace, they have a great track record. The GE NX-1B engine it was essentially designed for the Dreamliner. It has a strong track record. So with that in mind, investigators will get the cockpit data recorder, the voice recorder. Those will give the biggest pieces of information that will immediately be able to say to investigators, okay, we think this is one of the primary causes for the accident. In the meantime, for investors, you know that when there is an accident, shares of the aircraft maker or the engine maker, they always sell off. Adding to that this time is the fact that both GE and Boeing have seen their shares really increase over the last year. And there's already been talk about perhaps a bit of a pullback is due for those stocks. So that may be contributing to a bit of the sell-off today. Again, guys, we should get more answers in the weeks to come. I don't expect them to get the cockpit data recorder and voice recorder within the next 24 hours. And even if they do, it's going to take some time to analyze it. It's going to be some time before we get some indication of what happened with this plane crashing shortly after takeoff.
Phil Lebeau, thank you very much for joining us, raising some pertinent questions. We're now joined by Marco Chan, Global Aviation Expert and Senior Lecturer in Aviation Operations at Buckinghamshire New University. Marco, thank you so much for joining us. What would be your understanding on the possible reasons for this terrible air crash?
Thank you. And first of all, my condolences to the victims there today. Now, we don't want to make too many assumptions at this early stage, but a couple of exploratory ideas we can look for and to see where the investigators would want to have a closer look into it. Now, there's earlier footage of the aircraft on the initial climb out and then eventually dropping out of the sky. Now, a couple of things we usually look at is, first of all, is the weather a problem back then? Now, when I've looked at the weather report and it looks like it's a fine day, it's a fairly calm day, nothing out of the ordinary. So immediately the weather could be out of play. Now, the second thing is, was there a bird strike? Because remember, a couple of months ago in South Korea with Jeju Air, we had similar things with the possible bird strike, but then we couldn't actually see any puff of smoke or fireball from the engine. So that could possibly be ruled out as well. Now, the third thing we can look at is the possibility of engine failure. Now, there are usually two types of engine failures. One is with an external damage. You can see the fireball, again, puff smoke again. We don't see that. So there could be an internal a failure, could be to do with computer glitches, could be to do with fuel supply. That we wouldn't know the answer to just yet. Now, there are several experts out there who mentioned the lack of the extension of slats and flaps. I can't really see it clearly from the resolution of the video. Unfortunately, I can't verify that. But if there was an issue, that could be a potential cause of the incident. So remember, with the slats and the flaps, it helps the aircraft climb much better than without the flaps. So that could be an issue. So several things we want to look at. And of course, more important is for the investigators to then locate the black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder to look at what's going on.
Right. What's your sense on the kind of questions would this raise for Boeing, considering that the 787 Dreamliner has had a great track record, but at the same time, you had the 737 MAX, which faced investigations, and Boeing had to settle a case with the US Justice Department for $1.1 billion US for crashes in Ethiopia and other locations?
There's an excellent question in terms of Boeing. But remember that we don't want to have the manufacturer pointing fingers at them at this early stage. And remember, they are two very different aircraft type. One is 787, and as you mentioned earlier, quite rightly, since the inception in 2011, there has been no fatalities. So this time is the first. Yes, there are accidents and incidents with the 737, but then we have to look at the cause of the accident or incident individually. Are there any correlations? Now, Boeing, of course, would be helping with the investigation. Now, additionally, was there an engine problem? Then the engine manufacturer would possibly need to be involved in the investigation. Also, was there anything to do with the airlines, to do at the local airport? So several things at play. So we can't just say it's Boeing again, so it's probably Boeing's fault. It would be a dangerous assumption to have.
Right. Let me also ask you about the investigation as it goes forward. How long can an investigation in this case take? And by when do authorities, in times like this, actually get the first analysis of what has caused the crash?
Now, usually within the first week, you will have a fairly initial statement of the data they have gathered. Now, in this current case, because the crash was on land, while unfortunate, but it's a lot easier to locate the black boxes, the cockpit voice recorder and the flight data recorder. Now, if there's any damage to the recorders, they can be sent to places like the United States to try to retrieve the data. If the retrieval of the data is fairly straightforward, they can release an initial statement, but wouldn't be given out too much in terms of the actual information or the transcript on those data recorders. Usually between 3 to 6 months, you will have sort of an intermediate sort of statement. Hopefully in 12 to 24 months. Now, in this current case, likely going to be slightly quicker than that, but usually between 12 to 24 months, you will have a comprehensive report.
Right. We've also seen a statement from the Natl Transportation Safety Board of the United States. They have said that NTSB will be leading a team of US investigators traveling to India to assist the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau. What's going to be the role that will be played by the NTSB and the Aircraft Accident Investigation Bureau?
They have vast experience in the field, and surely the authority in India, if they're happy to receive the support, definitely cooperate and collaborate with other authorities and investigation bodies, which can speed up, expedite the entire investigation. They have dealt with a lot of these similar accidents or incidents, and plus it is Boeing that is involved. NTSB would probably want Boeing's involvement, and NTSB there would be a very great choice to have. So yeah, definitely work together. Let's get the truth out, and hopefully we can let the victims and their families know what's going on and what was the truth and the cause of that.
Right, Marco. The pilot made a Mayday call almost 20 minutes after landing. Clearly, there was some very distressing situation on board because of which he made that Mayday call and then did not respond to the ATC. In those 20 minutes, something must have happened which went drastically wrong. What are some of the questions that authorities would be asking or looking for while examining the records of this flight in terms of service, maintenance?
Now, again, another great question, but just to sort of look at the facts as well and what happened, I believe the Mayday call was made shortly after the takeoff as well, so at several hundred feet above the ground. Now, it's quite rare, I would say, for pilots to make a Mayday call at this early of a phase of flight, simply because after takeoff, if the pilots notice there's something wrong with the aircraft, there's a certain failure, their primary objective is to ensure the aircraft returns to its safe flight path. So flying part is always the first priority. Communication comes after. So usually a Mayday call will have been communicated slightly after. Now, for them to put a Mayday call in that quickly, that probably signals the severity of the failures they are probably experiencing. Now, as to the lack of reply after that, usually there are two scenarios. First of all, usually when pilots give out the initial Mayday call, they will be busy with checklists, trying to rectify the failures, trying to return the aircraft to a safe flight path. They usually wouldn't have the time to respond to the ATC after the Mayday call. They would usually come back and say, these are my requests and my intention. I would like to return to the airfield, for example. So it only comes after when the aircraft is stable. Now, second scenario, of course, the aircraft actually did crash fairly soon after. So I would imagine by the time the Mayday call was made and a couple of seconds after, probably they would have crashed already. So I wouldn't be surprised when there is a lack of response from the pilots.
Right. And my final question would be, and it's quite clear from the visuals that there was not much that the pilots could have done. These are very experienced pilots with almost 8,200 hours of flying experience for the main pilot, for the lead pilot on board the aircraft. But the manner in which the aircraft was coming down, losing thrust, it clearly seems there weren't too many options at that time. What do you think, Marcos?
Now, if it is a computer issue or flight control issue, or even worse with the engine issue, there is, in fact, very little the pilot can do at this very stage, especially in the takeoff phase. Remember, majority of the times, the engine will be at what we call the takeoff power. Not necessarily the maximum power, but will be quite close to the maximum power. So apart from increasing the thrust, if is available at all, there's not a lot they can do, particularly when they're in a densely populated residential area as well.
Right. Marco, thank you so much for joining us. Indeed, a very tragic piece of news, and we appreciate the fact that you joined us to help us decode what possibly may have gone wrong and what lies ahead. Time for a short break, but on